Hello ratbags, it's Jade. Welcome to a survival show. Today, every weekend in fact, I give you a brief breakdown of everything you need to know about a new game that's coming out, or maybe an update to one of your favourite ones. And again, we're covering Icarus. Now, I covered this a few weeks ago. I showed off that Dean Hall was kind of leaking little screenshots and videos of the game in progress, but using his mobile phone to take some shots and some stuff going on. I felt like it was doing probably the game a bit of a disservice, showing it in such low quality. I guess he agreed, as they have released not only a brand new documentary, fake mockumentary, which explains a lot of the lore and details of Icarus, why we've got spacemen running around like cavemen on the planet. So a big shout out to Tiggs for pointing that out. It does look like the website has received a lot of love. There's a lot more to go through. So join me as we explore Icarus and whether or not it's going to be a survival game you'll be playing in the future. So if you head over to the Survival Icarus YouTube channel right now, there is a 7-minute documentary and it pretty much lists exactly what the story is going to be based about. We're introduced to a bunch of retired prospectors who are part of the first wave exploring Icarus. Now, Icarus was a planet that originally was earmarked for terraforming, maybe as a second home for Earthlings. Things maybe didn't pan out exactly how they wanted and they kind of abandoned the idea, but just recently biologists found some exotic materials that have started out pretty much a semi-gold rush. People, prospectors, are now racing to the planet to get some of these valuable resources. It's a pretty cool piece. Obviously a lot of New Zealanders and Kiwis acting in the part. I guess after COVID-19 they might be the only country left alive. I'm not going to show the video because I'll probably end up getting a copyright strike, just in case it does seem like this is quite special and different from just showing off some gameplay. But it is really informative. It's got some cutscenes that are obviously just cutscenes for this video and maybe not completely reflective of what you'll find in the game. But we have got some proper footage that we're going to go over too. Anyhow, let's go over the website stuff and a deeper look at maybe the exotic materials and the backstory. The first cohort were the first to arrive on Icarus. Part adventurer, part prospector, they came alone and in groups, seeking their fortunes, dropping to the surface on limited time permits, harvesting the planet's resources to survive and extracting exotics before returning to space. In orbit, exotics unlock advanced tech to take on even more challenging drops. So we're now starting to define exactly how Icarus is going to work. It is meant to be a free-to-play game in the future, although more info on that later. It is a PvE based game. You will be fighting against creatures and the elements, with planetary storms taking centre stage as being one of the most dangerous things. You'll always be on the lookout for oxygen and hopefully making protection against the wilds. The map is meant to be 64 kilometers long or big, and it's filled with all sorts of biomes, forest, lush biomes, as well as cold and deep, harsh environments. You'll be able to harvest every single rock and every single tree, according to the blurb on the website. When it comes to crafting, there's two sides of it. There's the planet side and the orbital. You can use any of the planet's resources to craft handmade tools, buildings and machinery to give yourself some protection, and then hopefully return to orbit with your prize, which is these exotics. Once you're back in space, you can then choose what kind of tech stuff you want to unlock with the exotic material, effectively giving you better equipment to return back to planets to go and get more stuff from. Now they're making this a little bit of a roguelike. If you don't make it back to the dropship as it goes to leave the planet's surface, you will lose all of your character's progression and all of your tech will be lost. They reckon there's going to be sessions that will vary from hours to days long, and lots of them will have different missions and locations. Every drop that you do is going to have a different goal and a time limit. And this is quite reminiscent of Deep Rock Galactic, which Dean Hall has gone on record in saying that he really enjoyed Deep Rock Galactic and maybe had an influence. So this obviously got revealed last year in June. They did say it would be coming out in 2021, and it does look like they're starting to ramp up. Now let's take a look at the actual gameplay video. So you can see you're going through space with zero gravity. It does look great from up here. It is giving me them sort of DayZ vibes. Like there's definitely some sort of gameplay mechanics with the realism of the first person view. Not sure if you can go third person. You will be doing the regular kind of mining activities you've done in every other survival game going. It does look though that lots of the stuff has got proper mechanics. So chop a tree and it will disintegrate in different ways. You're going to have to pick up your kills if you want to get them to maybe a safer place before you start harvesting them. So far, in times of dangerous wildlife, it does look like bears are the main big enemy, and different types of bears. How about fighting some polar bears instead of just regular black ones? So yeah, it looks pretty cool. The armor's looking pretty primitive and basic, and a lot of people found that the first reveal trailer, like, why are you in space doing this, but walking around using bow and arrows. It didn't really make sense. But now it's starting to. This is effectively individuals, not big governments, making these sessions to go down and get this exotic material. And this trader is effectively what I showed off. As I said, it's off-camera shots that Dean Hall showed off on Twitter a while ago. I'm super glad they've actually gone and put it together in a proper little 1 minute trader at least. I think a few comments on the previous videos I've done have asked why you have to get oxygen if there are campfires and stuff. Apparently one of you brainy people told me that actually fires can progress with only a very small amount of oxygen, but humans do need a little bit more O2O in the atmosphere to actually breathe. So there you go, nerds. So obviously there is a PR and marketing drive behind this. Lots of places have got interviews with them. PC Gamer has got some other info that we'll go through too. They pretty much speak about how characters become on fire and how fire can spread throughout the forests and the land if you're not careful. Storms that rage like lightning storms could cause trees to go on fire, and if you're too close to your base then you might find your little cozy cabin turning into a bunch of ash and dust. Now you can actually put players out if you're lucky enough by making a tool, which effectively is a broom, to try and stamp out the fire. If not, you will die and you will respawn. So you will be able to respawn. It's not simply a roguelike or hardcore game where if you die on the surface, that is it. But it definitely looks like if you don't escape in time, then you will lose all that progression. The rest of the interview goes on to talk about how much the weather plays an important part of it, how dangerous the planets are, whether or not it is lightning storms or maybe a big snowy blizzard. You'll be doing the usual, collecting your sticks and stones, building pickaxes and chopping lots of trees down. And just like Deep Rock Galactic and maybe a little bit of Valheim, rocks that you harvest pretty much will break away in segments or sections. Although this isn't anything new, Conan Exiles have been doing this for a while now too. The idea is that when you travel to these planets, you've got nothing. You spend every last penny getting here to try and gain some of this exotic material. PC Gamer says that the world, it looks absolutely stunning with crystal clear rivers and lakes, towering trees that sway in the wind and lots of snow-capped mountains. It is an 8x8 kilometre landmass. Now that's pretty different from the 64 kilometres, so I'm guessing the 8x8 is squared. There will be desert biomes, rocky canyons and long rivers going throughout the lands. Now it's not procedurally generated, it is a handcrafted one, but they have got some components that will change, so it doesn't get too boring when you visit. Every time you go to a different session, there'll be some sort of procedural element there. You'll find caves that might be closed or open, the resources might be different and some of the challenges will be different. You are on an alien planet, so why are we seeing lots of Earth-like creatures? Apparently this is all part of the very first attempt to terraform this planet and make it habitable as a second Earth. So you will find deer, fish and of course bears. Now don't worry, it's not too primitive. You will be able to upgrade to shotguns as we saw in the little minute gameplay trailer. Does look like there will be some sort of elements of firearms coming into the game rather than just bow and arrows. And the rest of the interview just covers the fact that these sessions are going to be what it's about. You're not living on a map all the time. You'll be coming back and forth, hopefully progressing, unlocking new items and then going for a new challenge with new missions. Now it says that the planet, some of these sessions might require you to even build roads and really focus on finding the best way to getting access to some of these materials that are hard to get. In some of the footage we've seen and screenshots, there are some sort of, I called it a Mars buggy, but of course it's not Mars. Some sort of space buggy that you can use. Some sort of rover. You'll have to mine these materials and then get it back to the dropship in time. There are factions though, and these aren't factions against each other, of course though. These are all about PvE, but each faction may have different kinds of missions. One might be about constructing buildings for a client or getting a specific item on the planet. It goes on to report that the XP system is pretty similar to what you've maybe experienced in the past. Your character will gain levels which will give you access to higher tiers of items, and you'll be able to get all sorts of things like more advanced armour, camouflage, fishing gear and recipes for cooking, as well as I mentioned, the rifles and shotguns. There are electronics, there's going to be furnaces and fabricators, material processors, concrete building pieces and items like binoculars and a fire extinguisher. Now they didn't actually show off the tech tree, what you'll be unlocking when you're off the planet back onto the orbital stations, so I guess we'll see that in the future. If you really love building cozy cabins and returning back, then Icarus might not be for you because you do have to leave eventually, and so everything you've done on that planet will be wiped. Now Dean references Valheim, apparently they've been playing it a bunch. Ideally, Valheim is meant to be played with that progression in mind. You're not really meant to keep going back and back to the same base. And this is why when I've done videos talking about it, it's pretty controversial. They've gained loads of hits about being able to teleport ores through portals. The whole point of Valheim is to keep going, to keep progressing, not really to just come back and build huge mega bases. You should have outposts everywhere and be able to make and craft whatever you want to craft as you progress with you. And Dean Hall says that's what they're trying to do here, put a good structure around that. They want players to have reasons to build structures in each session, have a good amount of progression, clear direction, know what you're going to do, and not have to worry about having just one core house. Apparently the building system's more or less just like Rust or Fallout 4, so kind of modular, just like you would expect. Lots of wooden beams, and you could maybe get something looking pretty cozy. You'll be able to play this game solo if you really want, although it's advised that you do find some friends. And something really interesting, that PC Gamer notes when they first revealed it, they were told it was going to be a free-to-play game, but they've been recently told they're waiting for more details on that and they're not announcing any pricing details. It does look like they may be changing it from a free-to-play game to actually something paid. They're going to be streaming gameplay on April the 8th on Thursday, 5 PM PST time, 8 PM EST, so that's like 1 AM in the morning. Oof. But that would still be great to see some actual live gameplay. Now, a few other interviews with like other places like PC Invasion reveal that some of these sessions will last maybe 30 minutes, some will last an actual week in real time. You can go off your world if you're going to go for your dinner. You can log out and you'll be safe more or less. But obviously if that planet does burn up or it runs to the end of the timer, you will lose your progress in the end. Once you're happy you've got enough of them exotic materials, you'll be able to go to your dropship and escape. You can do it at any time. But yeah, it's a real big emphasis on making sure you escape before it's too late. You will lose all your progress. Just like all survival games, you are going to need some food and water and sustenance as well as that oxygen. You will get buffs and debuffs as well. So having a good night's sleep is meaning you're going to have a good buff. And even if you're playing solo and you somehow die, if you want to be revived, you can actually have a faction pay the revival costs for you, but you will lose some of your resources. Now this gives actual some more details on the multiplayer side of things. They're saying it can be co-op up to 8 players, and that is really small scale compared to some of the what you would maybe expect from someone that, you know, made DayZ. It will be all servers handled by their side. Doesn't look like it's peer-to-peer, but they are maybe looking at stuff like that in the future. And of course they are thinking about dedicated servers too. Now part of the leveling up system is just like Skyrim and Valheim, where doing more of that action will get you more of that skill. So chopping trees means you're going to get more chopping tree bonuses. Interestingly, they lay out the plans for the future. This first session, which they're going to launch with, they're calling it the first cohort. It's the first prospectors, us, will see Earth-like zones with biomes and animals that you'll be familiar with. Later on, they'll have chapters called New Frontier and Dangerous Horizons, and this will show maybe a little bit more exotic planets to go to, and there may be a lot more alien-like creatures and bizarre sort of plant life. You will be able to go and revisit sort of the Earth-like planets, but there will be older chapters, so you really will be maybe more and more venturing into more alien territory. Now they were adamant that they weren't going to add any kind of PvP elements, that this was all about cooperation in a PvE setting, but they seem to have softened a little bit on this. Apparently it does look like they may have one of these chapters maybe set in a PvP setting for players that would choose to, and I think that's a good compromise. Players that maybe want the experience of going down, even if it is maybe only 8 players, you could effectively do anything with that. You can make it a Battle Royale style minigame, and I think that would sit well nicely alongside the PvE content, as long as it's not the full focus. And that is pretty much it. It's going to come out on Steam later on this year, and there's a bunch of other interviews, but I think I've got the core main details you need to know about, and hopefully shown you something that not a lot of other creators have shown you this weekend. I very much will be all over this. I really like the sound of this. I love Deep Rock Galactic. I think it's a great game. Valheim's obviously amazing as well, and it seems to be combining a bit of both of that. Dean Hall, yes, will be played pretty much forever throughout his career about whether or not he can actually finish a game and actually have it successful, but I think this is probably a good shout to try. We'll have to see what the pricing's about, whether or not they do go down the free-to-play route, or whether or not they decide to actually just make it a paid product. Let me know what you think about Icarus, and as always I'll be there first to give you all the important info and a roundup of everything you need to know about survival games. So until next time, I'll see you a lot later.